Welcome to Sherlock Monthly. I am Edward G. Pettit of the Rosenbach Museum and Library in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and we're going on a biblioventure through the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Today's episode is The Disappearance, not the adventure of, The Disappearance of Lady Frances Carfax. And joining me for this episode as co-hosts are our couple of very dear friends, Monica Schmidt and Ray Betzner.
Hey,
So glad to be back.
Thank you for coming back, both of you. Sherlock Monthly, everyone, as you guys know, watching, began in 2023 as a weekly program called Sherlock Mondays, in which we deduced, deciphered, dissected Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes adventures in a kind of conversational annotation in the order the stories were originally published. And all those episodes are available to watch on the Rosenbach's YouTube channel, including the special subscription show that we did, The Hound of the Baskervilles, which is also now free to watch. They're all available on our channel. That was 40 episodes. It's actually 42 episodes in that first run because we did a couple in the summer. And I decided, let's keep going and do them all. But we're only doing it monthly. And this is the last episode of this season that we're doing. We will return later in this year. If you're watching live or close to now, we'll return in September 26th with more episodes. It'll take 2 years, two more seasons to finish them all. So I would also ask you to please consider making a donation to the Rosenbach or by becoming a member. You can do this at our website, rosenbach.org. Your support helps me to continue creating programs like this and also care for our collections, including our lovely Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes materials at the Rosenbach. Sherlock Monthly is also brought to you by the generous support of Lisa Washington, who has been sponsoring the show since the very beginning. Thank you, Lisa. And also Belanger Books, publishers of all new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, Solar Ponds, and occult detectives from the Victorian era to the 21st century. You can visit them today at belangerbooks.com. Thank you so much, Belanger Books, for sponsoring us this season. We also had Derek from Belanger. I told him I'm going to go either one, and he said that was okay. But Derek was even a co-host on one of our episodes, which was a lot of fun. Now our two co-hosts today, Monica and Ray. Monica, you all recognize because she was on Sherlock Mondays and she's been on other episodes since we've turned over to monthly. And Ray Betzner, if you don't remember, you got to think back. Episode 9 of Sherlock Mondays. Ray on the 5 Orange Pips. Ray was in the beginning of the show only as a special guest talking about the history of the Baker Street Irregulars, founded by Christopher Morley, not the street urchins in the story, but the organization that many people belong to and belong to scion societies of. And you gave us a nice little rundown of that, Ray, which was a lot of fun. Well, you guys are ready for today?
We are. Let's jump in.
We are. We've both had our baths, so we're well prepared. Yes.
Oh, look at you getting ready.
We're there. Squeaky clean.
Yeah, there you go. That's your the tie you're doing. That's your
that was my BSI bow tie. Color. So I figured at this point, there's a long-standing tradition of me yoinking Ray's bow tie. So since the gentleman is not wearing a bow tie today, I figured I might as well wear the one that he gave me. So
well, welcome to everybody. I see you all out there. Madeline and Claire joining from New Zealand. Hi, Claire. And Fred and Ashley and Lauren and Max. It's great to see all you guys there joining us for this episode. Curiously, this story is not called The Adventure of the Disappearance of Lady Frances Carfax. It is called The Disappearance of, and I pose a trivia question. What was it? Because when the stories were originally published, they were under the head title of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And then it was The Adventure of, and then the story title without the adventure of. And at some point during that run, the story was The Adventure of something. And my question is, what was the first story as published in the Strand Magazine that was the adventure of?
You had me stumped earlier, and then I started having to go through publication order in my head, and I'm not always gifted at
Well,
that.
we know
But
Scandal in Bohemia. It's
no,
not the
but I'm thinking it's Blue Carbuncle.
Ray. That
I
is
agree.
that is correct. It was Scandal Bohemian, Redhead League, Case of Identity, the Boscombe Valley Mystery, The Man with the Twisted Lip, and then The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle was the first one. And then they all since became that. And we talked about this very early on at Sherlock Mondays, how, you know, it's a little different to think of these stories as adventures rather than mysteries, which is kind of how they're classified now, as mystery stories. But Doyle, as it's a kind of story that's kind of being created, the genre of is being created when he's writing these. He thought of these, I think, as adventures. Maybe by the 20th century he's not, you know, like well into the 20th century when we get to this one.
Yeah, and you know that's a good point, Ed. And you know this is one of the later adventures, and Conan Doyle was in a very different place in his life, in his writing career, and in his personal life than he was when he first started doing this work. You know, by this point, he has his first wife has passed away. He has married Jean. They have a couple of children, young children. The boys have been born by the time he's written this, and he's traveled very widely. He's becoming much more public in his belief in his discussions about spiritualism. But you know, to me, curiously, when he's writing this, he's also has to be working on the first Professor Challenger story, The Lost World, which is really, really a cool story. Reading it as a boy, I just was absolutely fascinated by it. I came back to it time and again. And it's you know it's a little embarrassing when it comes to the treatment of some of those natives down there, but that was the British way, at least in that era. But as far as an adventure tale is concerned, as a real adventure, you know, adventure tale is concerned, Lost World has a lot going for it, and uh, I think Conan Doyle found fresh life as a writer when it came to Challenger, and that really inspired him. With Holmes, and you know, we could talk about this as we go along. Boy, there's a lot of retreading going on here.
There is.
Yeah. It basically feels like he's almost like you know, going back to his original stories and riffing off of them, or kind of revisiting them, recycling the plots.
There's definitely moments in this story where, you know, this is an idea that you've done before, and this one's really odd. This one really ends strangely, and just the whole structure of it is, I don't know, and this is something I'll hit later too. I don't know if it's him consciously trying to change up the way he puts together a home story, or if it's just that he's not that interested in this one. Now, I think some of the later stories then get enormously better, and we'll hit enormously better when we start next season with The Dying Detective, which I think is a really fine story. And then His Last Bow, and then The Valley of Fear, and and he starts to get those juices going again. But we've had a few here that I've been a little iffy on, these are going to fall in the bottom of my rankings.
Yeah, no, I don't think Lady Frances Carfax is at the top of anybody's list. Yeah.
But some very interesting things in it that I'm looking forward to hitting today.
Okay.
But first, let's look at the at least the cover of the first American, and then we'll hit the Strand. It's a story that's published in December 1911 in the Strand in London, and in America in the American Magazine. The only story, and it's the only Doyle story ever published, written by Doyle, in the American Magazine, which was a magazine that ran from 1906 to 1956. And but it's the only story. But they did at one time run an interview with Doyle in 1922, so 11 years after the story. They ran an interview interviewing about spiritualism.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find that. Let me start the share here to look at some magazine pictures. But this is the interview. You start in there where you leave off here. This cryptic title, an interview with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle on life after death. And there's even almost a kind of disclaimer at the beginning. This magazine is devoted to, collection and distribution of information. Just now interested in is particularly active in spiritualism. So, but they also had a contest, a prize contest. If you send them your best spiritualist experience, you could win $20 as the first prize, 400 words or less. Like, don't get crazy, people. Don't send us a whole book. Talking about any experience that you have had with the other world. So, and
way to run a disclaimer and then lean into the
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, don't start writing hate mail to us, all you Christians who are very angry about the spiritualist world. We're just writing an interview here. We don't actually believe this either.
But then submit to our contest and up our readership.
And I just put in the I put the link into that. You can find this on the Arthur Conan Doyle Encyclopedia, which is one of the greatest resources of
it is terrific.
Of Doyle on the internet. I mean, it's unbelievably fabulous.
Yeah.
They put on there and things that you can find on there. But also in this interview, they have this drawing of him here, and then they have a picture, one of the spirit photographs.
Yes.
And at first I'm ready to like really joke about this and like this is hilarious, like the spirit just creeping his head in there. Yeah. But that's his son.
Yeah.
And that makes it, that makes me a little bit angry. That this is the kind of thing then that is and it says in the caption, Doyle took this picture himself and developed it himself. And either he didn't, like somebody else did it, which I suspect, or he's just lying. Because it's clearly that you can make these photos and people did that. We know how they made them. So it's that really, like I can be okay with Doyle being a spiritualist. Anybody can practice or believe in the things that they want to believe in. But when it kind of really hits on the, trying to almost prey upon the grief that people.
I was about to say the exploitation of grieving folk. Which is something that I deal with in my profession as well.
Yeah.
There are people who are grieving, people who are in heightened emotional states are highly susceptible to suggestion and easily taken advantage of. And this just feels exploitative.
It does, but then I go back on a little bit, and I also think too that it was a comfort for Doyle.
Yeah.
And what am I going to argue against the things that you find comfort in?
And he was not alone. Let's face it, after the First World War is one of those eras when spiritualism grows tremendously, and it's because of this is more your area, Monica, than mine. That the national trauma.
Oh yeah.
Of losing so many people, young people, at such a short period of time. Folks felt lost, and they were looking for answers.
Well, that's actually what happens. We'll just say at different points in history is people who are feeling lost or dejected, or kind of having this shared trauma and grief are always looking for direction. Mm-hmm. This is we'll just say is that history of the 20th century speaks for itself.
And in America, it happens after the Civil War.
Absolutely.
That's the big explosion in spiritualism in America. So it actually starts a little before, but then really explodes after the Civil War.
Right.
All righty. Let's get on to the magazine cover itself. There it is. An iconic profile of Sherlock done by Frederic Dorr Steele, the return of Dorr Steele, who has the last several stories he did not illustrate. They weren't being carried in Collier's magazine. And but Dorr Steele returns for this one in an illustration that is, I think, a little more pageant-like than his usual ones where he's doing
William Gillette.
William Gillette. Thank
Yeah.
you. I think this, especially this, cover here, is a little less Gillette-like than, because people, if I'm talking a code to people, William Gillette was the actor who played
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes on stage. It became the iconic image, and Dorr still used him as his kind of Holmes. That's how he pictured him.
Yeah.
And
Now,
Ed,
the
it's a
nose and the
good
chin are
point.
totally different in this
Yes.
one than it would be with William Gillette. As someone who has had to deal with, so the BSI's logo is the profile of William Gillette, and because I deal with a lot of the graphics, for the BSI merch, I've spent a lot of time staring at that, and it's like that is decidedly not William Gillette.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's different. That's what I thought. Good. I'm glad I'm
Yeah.
not ready. But the pipe looks like a Peterson. I'm not smoking a
Mhm.
Peterson today. It looks like a Peterson standard system. I've talked about that on past shows.
Well, yeah, that's also the one that's basically the basis for my tattoo. So,
Yeah,
The ear always looks too large to me in this
that's a
illustration.
giant ear.
yeah.
But he's listening to you. He's listening to everything. It's the opposite of the American private eye, the big eye,
The
the
private eye,
Pinkertons or
exactly.
whatever. He's listening. So there we go. And his illustrations in this are good, less shadowy than they used to be in Collier's.
Mhm.
I guess that's the nature of this, magazine. They were asking them for, usually in the old Collier ones, there's a lot of shadows in every scene.
Mhm.
And he's done the backgrounds in the room,
Hmm.
all situated in there. And these are just the presentation of the characters and a little bit in the foreground. Um, here they are when they finally see the terrible sauvage out the window.
Yeah, the savage.
Um, and oh, here we get a lot. Here's a shadow
Okay.
one. This one could be right out of this is a usual kind of Dorr Steele image for one, which is really great. Even though this happens in the morning, but he decided to shadow it up as if it's occurring at night. And
Well,
and
it's a
I
shady
love this.
situation, so it warrants the shade.
Yeah.
Mm,
And I love this one, pulling off the dressing gown with the belt there, looking a bit snake-like, flapping around. So that's a really good one. I like that a lot. Quick, man, quick. It's life or death.
Yeah, it's
All
got good
right.
motion in it.
Um, the um the Strand magazine then came out in December 1911, and it's the Grand Christmas Double Number. The previous story, Red Circle, was March and April. It was divided into two parts in 1911. So this is, several months later. You finally get another story. The Christmas issue, they like to do the in color, which at this time they were doing. I guess it's tritone, I'm not sure. And but they snow up the scene for the Christmas number, and but this is a first, is at the time. I mean, a new Sherlock Holmes story, a new story of Sherlock Holmes is not, they frequently put him on the cover, but a little picture of Sherlock is new. That hasn't been done on a cover of Strand before. I'm pretty sure this is the first time. I think I've looked at all the covers. And this is the first time that we see him there. And that will occur in later Strand magazines with Sherlock in them as well. And
Ed, hang on a second. So we critiqued the illustration of Holmes on the other cover. This guy's completely bald.
he is Alec
Mhm.
Ball. Alec Ball did these illustrations, and I think they're good. I mean, they're
Mhm.
not great, but there's some good ones in here. But he definitely does a bald Sherlock.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
there's no
well, I
doubt
mean,
about it.
to
There's
the
no widow's
extension
peak in
of the
this one.
receding
Normally
hairline
you have,
from Paget. So,
Yeah.
it's the natural
Paget was getting
protrusion.
increasingly receding, and which my suspicion is that Sidney
Walter.
Paget's brother Walter, who was the model,
Yeah.
was getting increasingly, thinner, and so that kind of happened. Even like when the stories jump back in time, he doesn't pay attention to that. It's just, but this one, yeah, he's it starts with the the illustration here with the terrible sauvage here and Holmes coming to Watson's rescue, which I really like this one, except for the people in the background here. Like, what the heck is this? Like, did you finish this? They look like they're wearing masks or something. But this I like a lot. I love he's also looking a little Professor Challenger.
No, that was my
Yeah,
first
that
thought.
one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Challenger on the brain.
And poor Watson, I just feel like, oh man, sure. Well, we'll get to this, but Sherlock put you in such a tough position, and
Yeah.
then you get like
It's mean, but we'll get there. But it just, ugh,
Holmes does not come off well in this story. There's
no.
just no doubt about it.
all
Yeah,
right.
I was pondering earlier this week about Holmes and sociopathy because I wrote an essay about that a few years ago when the BSI manuscript series did the Charles Augustus Milverton, so the worst man in London. Some of the actions from Holmes in this one make me maybe second guess my clinical conclusions from that previous essay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get into it,
Well,
but
Yeah,
get to when we hit those. I definitely want to
yeah.
hear about them. But the story begins. Um, but why Turkish? Asked Mr. Sherlock Holmes, gazing fixedly at my boots. I was reclining in a cane-backed chair at the moment, and my protruded feet had attracted his ever-active attention. Um, the story begins with Holmes playing this kind of Dr. Bell trick on Watson, that we're all very familiar with. But then I was thinking, like, has this happened lately? Oh, no, 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 no. It's been a long time.
Mm.
The last story he did this in was the stockbroker's clerk
oh,
in
wow.
March 1893.
Wow.
18 years previously is when he last did this trick with Watson. Like said something about something he has, and then like goes on a train of things. All those examples we remember, they're all
Early.
early. And I mean, and this is a distinct feature of their relationship that this happens. I mean, it's part of the tropes that Doyle uses to define his characters.
Mhm.
Um, but it hasn't happened in a long time, you know? And I want this is one of those things I wonder. It's like as we've had a few of these later stories that wind up being in his last bow. So the book that they're in is the
Mhm.
last bow, his last bow, and they sometimes I'm really thinking Doyle's trying to like I need to remember that there could be new readers, and there are definitely new readers to Sherlock Holmes, and I need to make sure I define these
Hmm.
characters as I've defined them in the past. So he pulls out like there are people who they don't have the books, they're picking up a magazine, and this is all that they have, and so he needs to remind them of who he is. It's also this relationship as he goes through these steps, about pulling everything together that this is their relationship in they're very good friends. They love each
Mhm.
other. We have so many examples of them, showing emotion towards each other. But at the end of the day, Holmes is the professor and Watson is the student, and the not best student in the class either. And that gives it a kind of hierarchy. They have hierarchical, is that it?
Mhm.
Hierarchical
Yeah,
friendship? Is that the right word?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
That's
there definitely is a one upmanship, one downmanship from this. I mean, and that we see that a lot. Rarely are friendships truly that of equals. So, it's rather evident in this context.
Yeah, at least Holmes especially sees it that way.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, there. I mean, I think there are times when, and in the story, for example, Watson says a couple of times, Holmes could not have done better. When he's out. I think I've had,
yeah,
done well for myself. Holmes
yes,
couldn't have done better. And then, of course,
yes.
Holmes
Then he
calls
learns.
him essentially a blithering idiot. And he couldn't have done worse. But well,
Hmm.
we'll get to that. The clearly these are two people who can forgive one another some of the things that they say to each other and allow them to blow right past.
Yeah. Watson is a little droll here when as soon as Sherlock starts this about Turkish bath, Watson writes says, I have no doubt the connection between my boots and a Turkish bath is a perfectly self-evident one to a logical mind, and yet I should be obliged to you if you would indicate it. Like he's at least like, he's patronizing it, Holmes there. Like he recognizes like, okay, now you're going to tell me all the steps where you figure this out.
Yes. We've
And
seen
Holmes,
this all before, Holmes.
yes.
Go right ahead. Show us once
And
again how smart you are.
Holmes even
Use the
throws in the
trick.
elementary word. It belongs to the same elementary class of deduction.
Yeah.
Absurdly commonplace, isn't it? He says after he like pulls out all the stops. The cab ride. I know what window you were sitting in the cab, and then the boots, and then the bath. Like he runs through the whole thing.
Equally childish.
Yes.
Mhm.
um, and um, and then, but what we really should know is a Turkish bath. If only I knew someone who had done a little internet research and could tell me about Turkish baths. I don't have, I but there probably is a Turkish bath in Philadelphia that I don't know about.
Well,
But
I don't know about that.
Well, we learned that there's one in Detroit about a month ago.
There you go. But Turkish baths. So, Turkish baths, very fascinating subject. I've been reading about it for almost 15 minutes, and so I'm an expert. And I will let you in on what it is I've learned. Actually, the first kind of hint about this topic, I studied back in 1987. There was a great book that came out on the Scent with Sherlock Holmes. It was written by Walter Shepard, published by the Gaslight Press.
I don't have that one.
If you can find a copy, he goes through and talks about what London smelled like, and it smelled really, really bad. There were lots and lots of bad things going on, and one of the things that smelled really bad were the people in London. Um, you know, I don't know if you think about this when you're reading the Sherlock Holmes stories, but have you ever asked yourself, was there a bathroom at 221B? We know that there was. And
We
Monica,
hope that
tell us
there
why
was.
you think we know that there was a bathroom that had bathing facilities in it in 221B. Can you think of that? And I'll give you a hint. The man with the twisted lip.
Shaving, right? No.
Holmes got the bath sponge
Yeah.
Right.
from the bathroom in 221B and took it to Scotland Yard and wiped away the face of the man whom they thought had killed Neville St. Clair, who turned out to be Neville St. Clair. So we know that there was a bathroom at 221B. So that is some comfort. But a lot of places in London did not have bathing facilities. And London went through a huge population explosion in the 1800s, especially in the first half of the 1800s. And in those days, we think of a city as being mechanized, but it was still almost like a farm culture. Remember in the Blue Carbuncle, Ed, you brought the Blue Carbuncle earlier? We know that there were geese in London, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were also pigs.
Those yards,
There were
yeah.
lots and lots and lots of horses. There were oxen to pull the heavier carts. So it felt like a huge farm that was in the middle of the city because these animals could be found running around. There was lots and lots of smells coming from them.
Well, and of course, lots and lots of waste from all of those animals.
Exactly. And from the tanneries and from the butcher shops and the other places where these animals were processed and used for food. But people made a lot of waste too. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just it was a smelly kind of place to be in the early part of the 1800s, before sewage drains were put in. People used chamber pots.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a ditch that ran around the middle of most streets. And as you walked down the street and you saw someone opening a window, you would shout up and say, "Hold the hand." You didn't want them to toss the chamber pot down on top of you. So I mean, this was the way things were. The London and British governments came through with a couple of acts that started mandating public baths be built in London central London to meet the needs of the people. And these were being done not so much for the scent, for the smell. We worry about that today, but for health reasons. While they didn't understand the connections between having all this waste hanging around and illness, there was clearly some sort of connection in their mind. And so, if you could make people cleaner, chances are you would make them healthier. And that's where the theory that Watson talks about. It is what we call an alternative in medicine, a fresh starting point, a cleanser of the system. So that was the concept behind the Turkish bath, is you would go in there and your system would be cleansed. You would come out not just smelling and feeling better, but your entire physical being would have been rejuvenated as a result. So these baths, some of them were privately owned, some of them were publicly owned, some of them were designed for the upper class. Some were designed as part of hospitals for the inmates there. Some of them were part of hotels, grand hotels, and they eventually became what we would call a spa today.
Yeah.
The Turkish baths, but many of them were, you'd walk down the street and there would be a Turkish bath right there. And they were often styled after what architects in London thought a Turkish bath looked like in the Orient.
I put a link in the chat to some information about them, but this is another site too. I'll put this link in there. This is from a site, Living London History, where this one still exists.
Still exists. At the time this was written, I think it's the entrance to a restaurant, but this is what the entrance to the Turkish bath looked like. Yeah. Pretty cool.
And he's got some other this is just called wash houses. So you see the old sign up there. Now part of the London Met University.
That one's gorgeous.
And here you go. Bunch of, very hirsute men standing around in towels.
Yes. And so the concept was you would go in, you would take off your street clothes, you would put on a towel, and you would go through a series of heated rooms. These rooms, they would be very hot, medium hot, mildly hot. And in between, you could go to the cold pool and get yourself cooled down. But the idea was to kind of sweat a lot, perspire a lot. And then you would have a kind of full body wash and massage. This was referred to in those days as a shampoo. And it's where the concept comes that we use today just for the hair, but in those days the full body work was the shampoo. And again, for upper class folks, these were done by elegantly garbed people who worked there, and you could have tea, you could have other beverages, you could have food served to you while you were in there for workmen. And there were some that were designed just for the working and the poorer classes. They were very Spartan in luxury.
Not as grand as the one I'm showing a picture of now.
Exactly. Yeah. Not as grand as that one, but the whole concept was that the human body needed to be periodically revitalized, and it's interesting that Holmes kind of asked about the Turkish baths because if you remember, in The Adventure of the Illustrious Client, both Holmes and Watson go to the Turkish baths in the beginning of the adventure. So they experience this as a pair of London gentlemen would, and are seen relaxing in there at the beginning of the story. So this was a social
further down, isn't it?
Pardon? Yes.
Illustrious Client. So yeah,
a little later. Yeah, a little later. Right.
Yeah, a little later in the chronology.
So this is the first mention then.
Yeah.
I didn't look that up if this was the first mention or not.
But it is as much a social occasion as it is one that is designed to cleanse the body and to revitalize it. So, if you get a chance, go to a Turkish bath. Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, this is the first mention. The only other mention of the word Turkish is Turkish slippers in
The speckle, yeah,
and
like
speckled
on the
band.
fireplace.
In speckled band,
Oh,
actually. That's
yes.
Persian slipper.
Oh, I'm
Turkish
sorry.
slippers are
It's
mentioned
been, yeah,
in
it's been
speckled
a long
band.
couple of months.
There you go. All righty. Well, thank you, Ray. Perhaps one day, yeah, you and I'll get to visit one. That would be
There
nice.
you go. There you go.
There you go. I would do that. And Monica too. Yes. So,
Why not?
we have to be in different rooms. That's not how it
So
works.
there were some very few of them were co-ed
Of
in what
course,
we would
yes.
consider co-ed, and most of them had either bathing hours for men and then bathing hours for women, so that the two genders didn't blur. And there were, of course, some who said that this was a terrible kind of thing because you might see someone naked.
Might see some naughty bits.
Yes,
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 we all
yes,
might see
yes,
some
yes.
naughty bits.
And
Like an
just
ankle. Like an
oh,
ankle.
The
and
scandal.
well, but there were some that were very, when for those bathers who were coming out of the water, for example, a chamber would come down over them, and a pulley system would move as they moved over toward the edge of the pool, so that they could then put on a towel or a robe and come out without having anything untoward
There we
to be
go.
seen.
The more
Okay
things
with that.
change, the more things stay the same. There was I think last November, there was an article in the Atlantic about the end of naked, basically nudity in locker rooms. Basically that we've kind of reverted back to a more puritanical culture where we're less comfortable being in the nude, even in locker rooms.
Yeah,
Mm.
I've always been. I've never liked being in the locker room. Never. Not
I,
a
I'm an overgrown theater kid,
yeah.
so what are boundaries?
Yeah. Yeah, I want the pulley to mask me as I I'm fine with that. So, all righty. Well,
Uh,
so Holmes explains this how he knows all this, and then his next question is like, "How would you like an all expense paid trip, first class to Lausanne?" um, and Watson, splendid, but why?
What strings are attached, Holmes?
Yes, because one of the most dangerous classes in the world. And here I'm thinking he's going to start talking about criminals, right? Is the
oh,
drifting and friendless woman. She is the most
Holmes
harmless and
Holmes's misogyny
often
on full display.
is the most harmless and often the most useful of mortals, but she is the inevitable inciter of crime in others. She is helpless. She is migratory. She has sufficient means to take her from country to country, from hotel to hotel. She is lost as often as not in a maze of obscure pensions, and it's in italics, so it's a foreign word, pensions and boarding houses. She is a
she is
stray
a
chicken.
stray chicken in a world of foxes. Oh my God.
Yeah,
I
that's
was sitting here reading this the other night, and my wife came in and she said, "What are you reading? You're mumbling in here to yourself." And I said, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what it is that I'm reading. It's just, it just
I mean,
drives
he
me
is also
crazy."
really firing on all cylinders here, Doyle. He is
Oh,
like really painting this extravagant picture of like a rich middle-aged woman who travels around. Like, I mean, like the most
Yeah.
boring people you can imagine. And he's really ratcheting up. But it's actually that inciter of crime in others is why it's dangerous. Like, oh, it's her fault. It's her
Yeah,
fault.
always
Right?
blame the victim.
oh yes,
I mean, it's always blame the woman's fault. I mean, but
especially if the victim is a woman. Yes. Mhm.
exactly. I mean, well, we still see this today, and we don't have to get into the details of why, but yeah, this is typical. We're as women, we're kind of accustomed to this. We shouldn't be, but we
And,
are.
and and what's even worse is she won't leave her jewelry at home.
Yes.
And I think we
No.
all know what that means.
Well, that's because her banker is Alexander Holder from the Barrel Coronet. So she asked him, she said, "Where should I keep them? In a safe?" He's like, "No, no, 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 no. Of course. What would be more safer? What would be more difficult to rob? You or a bank vault?"
Well, I mean, in terms of, okay, so thinking sociologically for a second, in this era, women, of course, weren't allowed to own property. They weren't really allowed to have a lot of things. Jewelry was the only access that they had to like ready cash.
Hmm.
And so like, that's actually one of the reasons why, the diamond engagement rings It's about a dowry, essentially, or the ability to have quick access to cash if you need to pawn it. It's basically the only property women really had.
Hmm.
She's not in
Well,
this position.
Yeah,
She's got limit. He calls it limited means, but she's just trotting from hotel to hotel all over Europe. She's fine.
she's
she's living
she's
a
she's
life,
fine,
and he looks at
but
her and says, "A rather pathetic figure, the Lady Francis."
Really?
there's a judgment.
Is that the
Pathetic.
Victorian idea of utility? And it's like if you're not doing something useful for society,
Well,
um,
yeah. Well, that I mean that,
or is it because
and
she's a woman?
also there's probably some judgment there of the spinster woman, so to speak. That those ladies who are in their 30s and 40s who are not married, oh, they're pathetic creatures they are.
Well, and clearly there's something wrong with them.
Oh,
Because
totally.
they should be having children and running a household
Of
now, because
course.
that's what their duty is. It's
I don't
so
want to go too
it's
far with that because Holmes doesn't say things like that.
No, but that's a
Like
societal
he
I think
never
imposition.
he just did, Ed.
no, he has issues with her being like just out there doing nothing and being a prey to people, but he never goes I don't think he's ever said that the woman should be at home and like have children, that kind of thing.
No, but
That's a different view.
it's a
Yeah,
flip side of what he's saying. If you're not, well, anyway.
I don't
yeah.
know. Is it? Yeah.
I mean,
I
one could make that argument, but I mean, it's like every other woman that we've encountered, I think, essentially has had, even though they've been lower class, they've had an occupation.
Yeah.
Lady Francis is the
And
only
he
one
admires people.
that
He
basically
admires
is
women. Yeah.
wealthy enough to drift and kind of hop, location hop. Guy
and
would have
yet,
a life.
if this was a man,
Then there would be no judgment.
no issue, no problem.
No.
He calls her at one point too. He says she has limited means, the jewelry carries with her. She's the last derelict of what only 20 years ago was a goodly fleet. Um and yeah, I mean that's awful anyway, but I'm thinking like, well, so time has changed is what he is saying. Like those kinds of groups of women that used to go around as a fleet and probably looking for husbands aren't there anymore. So this
Hmm.
is a story from a later age in a sense, but chronology gets us all kinds of difficulties. Like when is the story set then is when,
Yeah.
but in 1911, I think Doyle's mind is that you don't see that so much anymore as you used to in
Yeah,
say 19th
I,
century.
I would not go into the chronology,
No, we
but
don't want to touch
what I
that with a
would
10
say
There's a
foot
is,
pole.
story that jumps all over in chronologies too.
yeah, this is an older Holmes and Watson. They you know they you get that sense that the two of them are in later years. Don't know exactly when, but these this is not the blue carbuncle Holmes and Watson.
Mhm. But the 20th century is well underway, and this kind of lifestyle is no longer, common of this in this class. It's the Gilded Age in America
The
or
Hmm.
times they are changing.
late Victorian, yeah. Um, well, then he goes in and describes he's been in touch with Miss Dobney, her old governess, Lady Frances Carfax's old governess, and she says 5 weeks have passed without a word, and that's unusual. The family are anxious, and as they are exceedingly wealthy, no sum will be spared if we can clear the matter up. This is the businessman Holmes here. He's like, I'm taking a case on. Not this poor woman, we need to save her. It's they got bucks. Let's find her.
Show me the money.
Well, but curiously, it's Miss Dobney who is his client,
Yeah,
Yes, not the family
not the
that her
family.
old governess
Yes,
has
yes,
yeah.
contacted.
but
They're like,
he's
yes,
thinking the
see if we can
family
find
will.
her then. I haven't heard from her either.
Yeah, he's thinking the family will cough up cash for information.
But we've had so many stories, and especially recently, where Holmes doesn't care if he ever gets paid. You know, and he constantly harps on that. Like, I don't care as long as the case is interesting. I don't need money. It's for the education and all that. And this is a story where he just says it out loud. They got money. Let's go on this case.
Yeah, and so what does he do? He sends Watson away once again
Yes.
with minimal information and says, if you ever need me, send me a telegram. There are other times when he does this to Watson. Watson goes down, of course, to Dartmoor with Sir Henry, and
Yep.
and actually does I think a pretty darn good job down there in Dartmoor.
Yeah, and Hound, he was fantastic.
Yeah,
He does.
exactly.
He doesn't really get things wrong so much. Now, when Holmes shows up, he shows him these are the things you missed, but he doesn't
Yeah.
really get things wrong.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Well, he
incomplete
will here.
versus wrong.
But, yeah.
Well, and you get to kind of Watson as a character and then Watson as a device. Because we're going to get to a paragraph here in about a page where Watson sets out, oh, now I figured it out. This is what's going on here.
Yeah.
These are the bad guys and these are the good guys. And whenever Watson says that, then it's wrong. It's going to be the other way around. It happens all the time. He can't, Holmes always has to be the one who's the clever one, who's the right one. Watson can't be.
And you might think that he's just tricking Watson to send it, but he's not. So because you learn later that he then actually does go later. It's not like the Hound where he's sending Watson off and he's already planning to go in secret. Here though, so when he says, I can't leave London while old Abrahams is in such mortal terror of his life, I guess this is an unrecorded case that we don't know about. Old Abrahams, who was in terror of his life. The adventure of old Abrahams, who was in terror of his life. But also Scotland Yard feels lonely without me, and it causes an unhealthy excitement among the criminal classes.
Oh,
Holmes, the
yeah.
ego.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. I mean,
he's
really
not like he's not wrong.
No, but this is where the carriage probably needs a sunroof, so like you can make room for that tremendous ego right there.
Holmes would say it's not ego, it's reality.
Okay.
But the reality will get checked by the end of this story, let me tell you. Well, Watson goes on to Lausanne and he finds out that he goes to the hotel where she stayed. Yes, she had a heavy trunk in her bedroom, which was scrupulously locked. Yeah, like you criminals, you can't rob me. I've locked my trunk. And they didn't, clearly. So I guess it worked. Which gets us out of thing. I'll throw it out there now. Come on. Like, why do the big con? We just could have snuck into her room and stole out of her trunk.
Like Blue Carbuncle, again, just sneak into the room, take it away and get rid of it. Well, I guess it's because it would have been a 2-page story then.
Well, this locked trunk sure stopped them. And but Watson then is investigating. Only one corner still remained in the shadow. No light, which I possessed, could clear up the cause for the lady's sudden departure. Well, of course, no light, which you possess, because Watson, as we remember, is not a light.
Not a conductor of light.
He is a conductor of light. It may be that you are not yourself luminous,
but you are a
conductor of light.
Indeed.
That's one of the most backhanded compliments in the entire canon. And Watson has taken it to heart. I'm no light. I get it. By this story. He's resigned to not having enough light.
So we were talking about things kind of being recycled in this story, and here when Watson then goes on to Baden, and he stays at the Englischerhof.
Yeah.
Shades of Final Problem. Where he and Holmes stayed.
Hold on. We didn't get to there yet.
Oh, sorry.
Because we can't miss when he finds out from Jules Vibar, the lover of the maid, that there was a tall, dark, bearded man, un sauvage. Véritable sauvage is also was talking to her. He was talking to her earnestly. So
Ooh.
that raised a lot of suspicion.
The mixing of the classes. Oh my God.
And then he called and she refused to see him. And he was English, but they don't know who he is. And and then Watson starts to think there's some secrecy. She had gone off with the intention of throwing someone off her track. This is good. He gets this. This is correct. That is why she left, to get rid of this guy, to leave him and not know where she went. And he dispatches to Holmes an account of all my proceedings and receiving in reply a telegram of half humorous commendation. What did that email say? Or that email.
Email,
I
yeah.
said email
Yeah.
automatically. What did that telegram say? Nice work, dim bulb, or something.
Yeah.
Well, he has a certain vein of pocky humor with against which
Yeah,
he needs
yeah.
Watson needs to guard himself. So,
But now he goes to Baden, and I didn't catch that. It's the Englischer Hof.
yep.
And that's Final Problem? I didn't
Yeah,
remember.
Yeah.
yeah. It's our Michael actually Englischer Hof is in Final Problem, and of course that's Switzerland. It's Michael Meir, our friend who's a lawyer in Switzerland. It's his investiture. So,
hmm
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Peter Steiler, if I recall correctly, runs the Englischer Hof in Meiringen. Yeah, it's I don't know why that one thing sticks, but it does.
Oh,
But here the Englischer Hof again, and I'm sorry, but time and again, so many elements in this story are recycled. They just feel
Mhm.
like they've been plucked from other stories, and we're using them, and we're going to reuse them again.
it almost feels like a typical Sherlockian film adaptation at some point. A little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from there.
Well, it's interesting. At the very end tonight, I want to talk about the Granada Jeremy Brett one, which I think it does an extraordinarily great job in recasting this story and
Yeah,
Mhm.
reimagining this story. But at the very end tonight, I want to hit that.
sure.
The he find at Baden, she meets Dr. Schlesinger and his wife, a missionary from South America. Like most lonely ladies, Lady Frances found her comfort in occupation in religion. Well, I guess in some not very lonely authors too, but of course spiritualism isn't a religion because it's, but Doyle not understanding that that's kind of what he does in his life too, is that
hmm
something comes along and he needs something to cling to, you know, and yeah, and he was
Well,
prey to lots of con men.
we all have our blind spots.
Yeah.
I mean, I point out a lot of hypocrisy in
Yeah,
therapy
but he's got a
sessions.
blind spot, and then he writes about someone else who has that
Yeah,
blind spot, and that's fascinating to me.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So again, so Schlesinger, not what full British, if
Hmm.
you will. He comes from South America. He has British roots, but he comes
Well,
from
he's a
South
missionary,
America.
yeah, a missionary, yeah.
Yeah, 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 exactly. He's been spending a lot of time out of the country, so there's something strange going on there. And this sauvage also, not he's British, they say of him, but he's not born and raised in London. He
Yeah.
comes from
Well,
someplace else. We'll
yeah.
find
Well,
more
we'll get to
about
that
that, but
Australia and all that. Like, there's a lot of other countries
exactly,
covering this
exactly. Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, these are all themes we find again and again in the Sherlock Holmes stories.
Hmm.
The people who cause the problems, they're not from here. They're from
Yep.
over there.
They're from elsewhere. It's the imperial distrust of foreigners.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if they're British.
Hmm.
Well, Watson also finds out that the savage has returned. A savage, said I? Exactly. That's a hard, fierce man, both bearded, of course, and sunburned. Um, and and now Watson assesses his investigation. I love
Yes, yes, yes.
already. Do you have that paragraph already? The mystery. You want to read
I
that?
do.
Read
Yeah.
that paragraph.
Already the mystery began to define itself as figures grow clearer with the lifting of a fog. Here was the good and pious lady pursued from place to place by a sinister and unrelenting figure. She feared him. or she would not have fled from Luzon. He had still followed. Sooner or later, he would overtake her. Had he already overtaken her? Was that the secret of her continued silence? Could the good people, who were her companions, not screen her from the violence or his blackmail? What horrible purpose, what deep design lay behind this long pursuit? There was the problem which I had to solve.
I love Watson the writer coming out and this is how you cast it into a story.
Oh, yes.
What he does.
Yes. Oh, he absolutely does. Yes, yes, yes. Let me catch you all up on what's going on here. And here's the summary paragraph. And this is what you're going to do from now.
Well, Holmes may never have been able to resist the flair of the dramatic, but Watson was certainly good at writing the dramatic.
Yep.
So he writes to Holmes telling him this, and Holmes writes a letter back saying, like, describe Schlesinger's left ear. And Watson thinks it's a joke. It doesn't respond. Holmes' ideas of humor are strange and occasionally offensive, so I took no notice of his ill-timed jest. No, it's a clue, Watson. It's a clue. Have you learned nothing? He doesn't ask those. He doesn't ask questions that don't matter in an investigation. So,
well, on the other hand, I mean, we saw Holmes and his sense of humor at the beginning of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some reason here to think that he's somehow being oddly playful. I know it doesn't make any sense, but to Watson, he sees it that way.
Well, Watson now heads off to Montpellier and in pursuit of the maid Marie and asks her, and she tells him about the terrible sauvage as well. She says that first her mistress had, as she confessed with distress, shown some irritability of temper towards her during their stay in Baden. And then and she gave her 50 pounds as a wedding present. That ain't cheap.
Ooh.
That's a, and keep quiet about this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course Marie doesn't, but that's a payment that she is making for her maid to go away, and you don't have to see me again.
None of this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, please sign an NDA.
But she didn't, and Marie's telling the story, and she even saw the sauvage seize the lady's wrist with great violence on the public promenade by the lake. And then sure enough, and look, there he is. Right out there in the street. And Watson immediately, confronts it because he assumes he has something to do. Like Watson has assessed this as like, this sauvage has pursued her and now has abducted her. And so of course now he's going to show up. And where is the Lady Frances Carfax? He says to him. He stared at me in amazement. What have you done with her? Why have you pursued her? I insist upon an answer. And the guy proceeds to start to kick his ass. Don't. Maybe this wasn't the guy that people were calling, like that. I think that's his wrestler name, the terrible savage from France, the terrible sauvage. And he comes into the ring. And he does. He proceeds to start to choke Watson out right in the middle of the street. Like he has no.
So this sentence really got me. I have held my own in many a struggle, but the man had a grip of iron and fury of a fiend. Where have we seen Watson in any kind of struggle?
Is it real? It's like we have.
I couldn't come up with an example.
No, but yeah, and isn't that Doyle's thing now? By now he has pictured Watson is the more kind of he helps Holmes in dangerous situations.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't ever see him. As a matter of fact, especially the first several stories, it's always like, yeah, and I couldn't keep up. Like my leg was hurting, and we always see Holmes in the fights and triumphing, but yeah, we haven't seen Watts. I mean, I understand he was a soldier, but he was a doctor, people. He was a doctor.
Well, he could, but but that experience, if we're thinking of this as being an older Watson, that experience was a while ago.
Yeah.
And we don't have any examples that I can think of Watson getting into a fight like this. And yet he talks as if this is something that's fairly common.
This is what I would say if I was getting my ass kicked. I've held my own in many a struggle. But this guy, I couldn't yeah, because like I've gotten my ass kicked. That's why.
Well, yeah, he's got a safe face for his readers.
Until saved by a unshaven French ouvrier, which is like just a workman.
A workman, yeah.
And all the annotations for this, in a blue blouse, darted out from a cabaret opposite. We know we're in another country. We know we're in France, right? He's an ouvrier. There's a cabaret, and with a cudgel in his hand, and it's Holmes in disguise. And,
of course,
he's saving Watson.
And then there's the echo again here of the Hound of the Baskervilles. Watson out on his own. And he seems to get himself into some sort of trouble, and suddenly Holmes just pops up out of the.
At least and this is a variation of it, because Holmes will then explain that I had to, once I knew I had to come, like, he wasn't because Watson was making a hash of it, because but he didn't send him off and was in disguise the whole time, which
No, that's true. But on the other hand, he didn't wire Watson and say, "Meet me at 2:30 at this location. I'm coming to meet you." I mean, he told Watson none of this.
He just
and he came in disguise, which is typical Holmes, right? So
he's staking out the place, and so he saw Watson go in. didn't appear himself. He wants to see, like, what's going to happen now when Watson goes in there. But he even tells him, he just insults him right off the bat. "Well, Watson, a very pretty hash you have made of it. I rather think you had better come back with me to London by the night express." He says,
oh, and then it gets worse. Can I read the next one?
Oh, yeah.
I cannot at the moment recall any possible blunder which you have omitted. The total effect of your proceeding has been to give the alarm everywhere, and yet to discover nothing.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Doyle's not concerned in this story with showing us what great friends they are. He is like, this is why Nigel Bruce is an idiot in the Basil Rathbone movies. Like, this is why, because sometimes in stories, and people say, like, oh, but they weren't accurate. Well, they're not accurate to all the stories, but they're accurate to some of them. Like, sometimes Watson puts his foot in a bucket as he's going through a room, and this is one of those stories where he has, but we don't, I think, know it yet until until Holmes tells us this, that you alarmed everybody. Like, everywhere you went, you made the alarm instead of investigating. You tipped off people, and it's not his fault. He should have gotten better instructions.
Yeah, I'm a big defender of Watson in this case. I really am. I think for what we know of Dr. Watson, he did as well as he possibly could have. Even when he went racing out into the street to grab somebody who was bigger than he was, and to get into a tussle with this guy.
Courageous.
I mean, he figured this guy was the bad guy, and he was going to go do something about it.
For him.
That's right. Give him. He was wrong, but give him credit for not being a coward in this kind of case, and taking action.
Oh, he's never a coward. No, not Watson. Yeah.
But I mean, it's also not only give him credit for not being a coward, but also and this is perhaps me as the therapist kind of chiming in. Holmes's own disappointment in Watson's performance is basically like, that's on Holmes. He gave poor instruction.
Yeah.
So Holmes is responsible for his own disappointment, but of course he's not going to own that. So let's take it out on Watson.
Yeah.
Yeah, even that telegram, when you think back on it, Holmes could have explained why it was he was looking for that information.
Yeah.
He didn't.
It wasn't that expensive to send a few extra words.
Yeah. 2 pence a word. Come on. You're getting big money out of the family here for this case.
Our
Be a little
expenses will
bit more
get covered.
thoughtful.
Don't
Yeah,
worry.
that's right. That's
So,
exactly right.
and Holmes is rich anyway from from various clients. All righty. Well, let me pause here a moment and take this moment to thank all of you for watching this episode. As a nonprofit organization, the Rosenbach Museum and Library depends on the generosity of friends and supporters like you to keep this program free and accessible to hundreds of fellow Sherlockians worldwide. I hope you will consider supporting the Rosenbach and Sherlock Monthly by donation, which you can do at our website, or you can become a member. Membership gives you free museum admission, discounts on programs and courses, and early access to registration, which is very important for when we run our online courses. You can learn more about how to become a member on our website or by looking at the links that I put in the chat here. We are also grateful for our show sponsors, Lisa Washington, who has sponsored the show from the very beginning, and new to this season, Belanger Books. Belanger Books publishes all new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, solar ponds, and occult detectives from the Victorian era to the 21st century. Explore the mysteries of 221B Baker Street, the horrors of Lovecraft's nightmares, and the wondrous worlds of H.G. Wells. Belanger Books has it all. You can visit them today at belangerbooks.com. Putting that in the chat too. And this is the last episode of this season. If you are looking for more biblioventures in the next few months to come, you can go to the Rosenbach's YouTube channel. I'm sure all of you have not seen all of the episodes of all of the shows that I've done. You can catch up on past Sherlock Mondays episodes or monthly episodes or Hound of the Baskervilles if you haven't seen those. It was a great 8-episode series we did with some really great co-hosts. All of our great Sherlock Mondays co-hosts, including Monica, and we also had Mark Jones and Paul Chapman. We had Max McGee, who I think is in the audience today. We had Steve Doyle on that. They were really, really great episodes. Or you could read a great novel along with me and lots of fabulous co-hosts. We've done Dracula, Frankenstein, Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice, Pickwick Papers, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, A Christmas Carol, and I just finished doing The Hobbit. And all 14 episodes of The Hobbit are available as well. I finally made it out of the 19th century for The Hobbit. Of course, the author was born in the 19th century, but I made it out of the 19th century with a published work in the 20th century. That's probably the only time I'll ever do that. Sherlock Monthly will return in the fall, but today we're going to finish this story. And Holmes and Watson are now in London, and the terrible sauvage comes, and it's Philip Green. Now he's the Honorable Philip Green, so we're going to drop his wrestler name and call him Philip Green. And Holmes knows Green's story already, as Green starts to tell him, and Holmes is like, "Yeah, I know that already." But the story is that he loved Lady Frances back in their young days, and she said no to him to being married. So he went to, I guess, prove himself in Australia. But he says, I was a wild youngster, and she came to hear of things that I had done. She would have no more to say to me. And yet she loved me. She loved me well enough to remain single all her sainted days, just for my sake alone.
That's a bold assumption.
Really? Yeah. Like, oh, is
She
that
won't
why
talk to him, but she'll stay unmarried for him.
Yeah. He comes back rich, and she's still like, I want nothing to do with you. And
Yeah.
because he waited for him?
Yeah, we'll just say
Yeah,
egotistical brain, egotistical
I tell
mind,
you,
basically,
he is.
this type of entitlement is historically accurate.
So poor Lady Frances, I mean, she's been abducted, and she has people who are going to save her because they're getting paid. And she's got an old lover who's going to save her because he believes she's in love with him, but she told him to go away. This is like Mr. Collins saving Elizabeth Bennet. Like, I don't need you to save me. Thank you very much. I would rather not be saved by you. But that's what they all. She is a cipher in this. She is only a, you know, just what these men say she is in this story.
Yeah.
Hasn't created a character of Lady Francisca, and she's in the title of the story, and
Yeah.
he hasn't created her as a character.
We never hear her speak.
It's really unusual. This is
does not pass the Bechdel test.
He has done great female characters in his stories, and he doesn't do that for this one, and it's really odd.
She feels more like a caricature than a character. She really does.
Yeah. So Holmes says, well, his London address, Mr. Green, the Langham Hotel will find me.
Once again.
What's the Langham Hotel?
Recycled. Captain Morstan stayed at the Langham Hotel. The King of Bohemia stayed at the Langham Hotel. Is there no other hotel in London where people can stay?
It's where the cool people stay, Ray.
It's also the hotel where Arthur Conan Doyle met James Stoddard from Lippincott's Magazine with Oscar Wilde and William Gill, or Thomas Gill. I can't remember his first name now. And Doyle decided, I think I'll write another Sherlock story, and it's the Sign of Four. And recently, because Glenn Moranker now has the Sign of Four manuscript, except for page 1, which at some point was separated from the Sign of Four. And part of the research that's been done is to find out when and why did it get separated. I was unable to find answers. No one I know has so far been able to find answers. Ira Matetsky's been on the case. You know, a great researcher he is. I did research in the Lippincott's archives in Philadelphia at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, which has all of the Lippincott archives there, and got to go through tons of letters between Lippincott and Doyle and Wilde and Gill, Thomas Gill, it is, who people, and I used to say that, like, whatever came of Thomas Gill. Well, he actually wrote a story, and I found it. And it was not a story. It's a nonfiction account on Derby Day, the horse race on Clapham Common, and it was published in the September 1891 issue of Lippincott's. That's what he wound up writing for Lippincott's. But I did. I'll just share quickly one of the letters that Stoddard had written to Doyle. And it is all the letters are on these carbon, and this carbon is easy to read. Let me tell you, some of these were so faded that it was really hard to read them. But this is Dear Dr. Doyle. This letter was September 18. He was there. They met, I think, at the very end of August. I think it was that they met at the Langham. I can't remember the exact date. I don't know if we have the exact date, actually. But it was towards the end of August. And then he says, I left London in such a hurry that I was unable to acknowledge your favor of September 3rd, which was in acceptance of our proposition of August 30th. So it was August 30th.
Yep.
We should, of course, make you a payment if the book was published after it appeared in the magazine. I like the title, The Sign of the Six.
Ooh.
Very well indeed. If our people reprint A Study in Scarlet, they will send you something, but you will appreciate what I told you in regard to the something advantage. I'm not going to try to just, we'll have it somewhere. Accruing to an author from a publication by this house. I read the whole of the study, said if you succeed in keeping up the interest in Sherlock Holmes, you are sure to have a good book. I went through files and files and files of these letters, just like everyone having to read a little, see if it was appropriate. And like, I don't know how many hundreds I had to go through like this over several days there. And it was really, really cool research to do to get this insight into Doyle's early career. This is before he hires Watt, who will become his agent, and with the Strand, and that really furthers that's what the key to his career in a sense was that Watt becomes his. I can't remember Watt's first name. Ray, do you not remember?
AP, the initials AP are the ones
AP
that I
Watt,
recall.
yeah, and then he becomes almost in a sense like the first literary agent ever is AP Watt in a sense, the work that he was doing for authors at the time. There are other letters in this collection about Lippincott's dealings with Watt too. So he's already been dealing with Lippincott's and will be, but not for Doyle at this point. And but yeah, that's the Langham Hotel. That's where Stoddard from Lippincott's met Doyle. So, and it turns up in stories too. And I think in Doyle's head, he always has to remember that lunch with Oscar Wilde too, who wrote wrote the picture of Dorian Gray for that.
I always said I don't know what Stoddard paid for that lunch, but he certainly got his money's worth.
Totally.
There are other letters too that talk about there's one letter that talks about, yeah, Doyle's a name, but he's not that big a name. Like he said into somebody else, like, and he's not. He's
not
well at that time, no.
Yeah. And he says like he's not that big a name. I think he maybe is asking for too much for this. And I think it's 100 pounds that he gives. One letter says they sent him 100 pounds for the manuscript. Now, I don't know if that was an entire payment or what. And then they talk about republishing it and what Doyle would get, for the publication rights in America, that kind of thing. So it's Ward Locke that Lippincott has secured as their London publisher, who's going to publish books there. But it's fascinating to see all this new stuff. So anyway,
cool.
All righty. That's where he's staying. Philip Green. And Holmes says, I have no desire to encourage false hopes, but you may rest assured that all that can be done will be done for the safety of Lady Frances. I can say no more for the instant. So he knows stuff and he's not telling it. And this is usual for Sherlock. Like, I know things that I'm not going to reveal to you. But usually it's because I've figured it out. And he has not figured it out here. He just knows that Shlessinger is Holy Peter's, which he will tell Watson now. That's why he asked about the ear, the clerical gentleman's left ear. You did not answer it. I had left button and could not inquire. But the Reverend Dr. Shlessinger, missionary from South America, is none other than Holy Peter's. That's a great con man name, Holy Peter's. Because he often impersonates clergymen as part of his scam.
Well, who better to trust than clergy, right?
Yep. Or a spiritualist. I'll keep harping on it. So Holy Peter's comes from Australia. How about that? So I love how we have Philip Green goes to Australia to make something of himself and returns at least wealthy. Whether or not he's still a bad catch, I don't know. He's choking a guy out in the middle of the street. That might not be the guy for you. But for a good reason, for the woman that he loves.
Who doesn't love him back?
Yeah, you better love him back. And Holy Peter's is from Australia, and he's conning people. Like, it's still that colonial mindset from the 19th century going on in Doyle's works. So
yeah, very imperialistic.
Yeah,
you can't trust them foreigners.
Yeah, one's from Australia to reform, and he's a good guy, and for these characters at least, and for Doyle. But the other comes from there to steal. So you don't know what you're going to get from Australia. So,
yeah.
Well, then he tells Watson, basically, she's either dead or they're holding her hostage, and I think she's dead. But there's nothing we can do right now, so let's eat our dinner and possess our souls in patience. That seems cold, but that's usual for what? That's usual for Holmes. He's like, all right, we got to wait for things to work out. Let's go to a concert,
So yeah, so one of the running kind of themes through these stories is, does Holmes care about his clients as people, or does he care about his clients as problems to be solved? This adds to the column of, he cares about her as a problem to be solved.
Yeah.
When you hear him use that kind of language.
And I think had Doyle created a character of Lady Frances, we might have seen the reverse. Like I'm thinking, Copper Beeches. There's any numbers with the Copper Beeches. He absolutely wants to save Violet Hunter, and he realizes, oh no,
she's a person at that point.
I sent her there, and I shouldn't have sent her there, and now I have to save her, and he does. But here, she's.
Remember how I was saying earlier that I was revisiting my theory that Holmes maybe not, isn't, or that Holmes was a sociopath or wasn't a sociopath. This is one of those times where there's like evidence of selective empathy.
Yeah.
And that type of selective empathy is very much kind of one of the hallmarks of sociopathy. And so, we'll just say what we're also seeing this in terms of him interacting, or at least how he is assessing Lady Frances Carfax as an entity. He doesn't know her as a person, so there's no person in front of him to, we'll just say, to develop that empathy. At this point, all she is a problem, like very abstract.
Yeah.
So, I think we'll just say contextually, we can probably forgive Holmes for lacking a little bit of empathy, but it is noteworthy enough where we'll just say I think I might have a new paper in this.
I mean, if I like, for me though, at looking at it as literature kind of thing, it's like I wonder if those stories happen because Doyle creates a character and then there's empathy, and if he doesn't create a character, then there isn't. Although I'm thinking back to, no, that's not true, because in Case of Identity, he makes fun of her immediately. What's her name again?
Mary Sutherland.
He makes fun of her immediately, and Watson makes fun of her immediately, and Holmes makes fun of her, and she becomes a figure of fun, and then they don't kind of even help her at the end. Like they stop her stepfather, but they don't really help her in a sense. So there is a character there that Doyle does then have his other characters ignore and not treat well. So there's no empathy. There's no empathy for her in that story.
I think actually, now that I think about it, that's another good example of a caricature, a type. She is a type. She is again, she is unmarried, and she is easily duped. Which has some kind of characteristics in the ways they're looking at Lady Frances Carfax too.
That's interesting. That's a way to maybe look at Doyle's stories, like when these women are like smart and have and are courageous or have like spunk. Like if they're one tough cookie, to patronize them as Doyle may, like that then Holmes likes them and wants to save them or help them, have empathy for them. But if they don't fit that mold, then maybe he doesn't.
So maybe it's the contempt for we'll just say, kind of those stereotypical women.
The wallflower.
Agency,
the people are
perhaps.
just like, I just want to get along. I don't want to, that's
the women without agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The derelicts. That's what
derelicts. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
All righty. You're welcome for giving you the story. You both signed up for it.
That's true.
Well, let's also we get the piece of information about Holy Peter's. He was badly bitten in a saloon fight in Adelaide in '89, and a chunk of his ear was taken off.
That's a fight.
Holyfield.
Mike Tyson.
So Watson says, I have been in many a struggle. Watson's never been in a struggle where he got a piece of his ear cut and bitten off. Okay. I don't know what kind of struggles he's been. He has not been in a Holy Peter's kind of fight.
Badly, I forgot to notice that, badly bitten. Yeah. That's rough. That's a fight. That's a fight.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
You're,
brawl at
you're
that
choked
point.
out in the street, Watson, with nothing. That was a fight. And he survived. Well, maybe he had a friend to come out and help him too.
Yeah, with a cudgel. Yeah.
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 Well, they now they can't. Holmes is trying to find out what's going on. They advertise, clues are followed, nothing happens, and finally he gets word that some of the jewels are pawned at
Well,
Bevington's.
before we get to that point,
Ooh, yeah,
there's a little thing that comes up here,
go ahead.
but neither the official police nor Holmes's own small but very efficient organization suffice to clear away the mystery.
Who is that?
Yeah. Is he referring to the Baker Street irregulars here? Okay, that's one thing. But remember when Holmes says this agency stands upon its own 2 feet,
Yeah,
no ghosts
flat-footed
need
upon the
apply.
ground, no ghosts need apply. Was it?
Exactly so. So,
We don't know that because
and
we haven't gotten to that story yet. But go
Oh
ahead.
yeah.
yeah, well, but we will later on see that there are other people involved in the Holmes organization who
Yes,
act as strongmen for him and who gather information for him. This is the first hint of that, I think.
I will note that later. Yeah, and keep that in your mind because later in the story he will come back to that, and
Yeah.
I want to note it then.
Okay.
So I'm glad you pointed that out now. But that is, and because I missed that. That is the first instance of that in the story. This very efficient organization. Um,
Bovington's.
they so they find out the jewel's being pawned, and then he tells Green. Green is going to go there now, and oh, before that, we get this really weird line for 2 days. He sends Green to check out the pawn dealer, but then we get this line for 2 days. The Honorable Philip Green, and he's called him honorable a
Honorable.
couple times now.
Mm-hmm.
He was, I may mention, in parentheses, he was, I may mention, the son of the famous admiral of that name who commanded the Sea of Azov fleet in the Crimean War. That's a weird, out of nowhere background detail on this character.
It's trying
Watson,
to humanize him.
I think more than humanize him, Monica. I think he's trying to raise him up from a savage
Yeah.
and make
That's
him
what
a
I mean is
gentleman.
humanize him also basically, elicits sympathy from the readers for
Yeah.
him.
He's
Yes.
not just a low-life scoundrel who
Yeah.
even Lady Frances was like, yeah, I heard the stories of you. Forget it. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
but it's interesting from a sociological perspective, though, that it's basically equating family lineage and
yeah.
decency versus
Mhm.
behavior as decency. She wants nothing to do with him. It's not about his family lineage, but oh, he comes from a great family,
Yeah.
an honorable family.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
this
a
is what his father
military
did.
family, and a
Doesn't mean
military
that he
family,
isn't that
which excuses his behavior.
exactly.
So, it's this kind of now he is worthy of Lady Frances Carfax. If you're
Yeah.
just, and I think Doyle maybe noticed this now, like as he's writing. Did I click out any moment there? All right. I think Doyle noticed this as he's writing that like, oh my gosh, I've set this guy up as like why would anybody want him anyway? And now he is
Needing
realizing
redemption.
that. So I just give a line, just a line. Oh, he's got a distinguished, uh background here.
Yeah.
His
No, but
father was a famous admiral.
so when I read through this, I put a big exclamation mark right against that paragraph because it just seems so completely out of place
Yeah.
with everything else that we have learned about this individual.
Well, he is honorable because he's the honorable Philip Green.
Uh,
So, and he is honorable in that he is absolutely trying to save this woman,
Absolutely.
even though he thinks she's in love with him.
Well, even though he has no respect for her boundaries or wishes,
Yeah.
but
Hey, said nobody's going to save her, so he's going to save her. So, um, uh, he is out on the stakeout of the pawnbrokers, and then this is Holy Peter's accomplice wife, whatever. We're never told of their exact relationship. And he sees her going to an undertaker. He follows her to the undertaker's. She's a tall, pale woman with ferret eyes. Well, that's no good.
Ferret eyes.
That is the lady,
Callback.
said Holmes. Oh, ferret eyes, that's her.
Well, no, but also ferret eyes would be how what Lestrade was, or he was described as ferret-like.
Yes.
Ferret-like.
So
He's a
you've got
tall,
callback there
pale
as
woman
well.
with ferret eyes, and Holmes right away is, that is the lady. That's not much of a description, but I guess so. Um, she's at an undertaker's and then asking about a coffin. It should be there before now, the woman, the undertaker says. It took longer being out of the ordinary. Now, that's the only clue that we got to the end of the story as to what's going on so far. But at least there is a clue there. And there's a clue that Holmes doesn't get right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. He always gets these clues in earlier stories, and he doesn't catch it yet. So Green unbelievably follows her and doesn't rush into the house when he sees them carrying a coffin in. This is
Un sauvage. What happened to the sauvage?
Choked out Watson in the middle of the street and doesn't see the coffin and think, oh no, and rush into the house. So, all right, he's learning.
Now, so
unbelievably learning. Like as an author, yeah, that doesn't believe. I don't believe that.
Yeah, no, that doesn't feel good.
Holmes twice looks at this man and says, "You did excellently well. You have done excellent work." I would argue he did no better or no worse than Watson did earlier in the investigation, but he didn't manage to completely screw things up. But he did basic kind of following here and gathering and hearing things and gathering some information. Here's my question: why didn't Sherlock Holmes do this himself? Why did he send Green to gather this information?
Yeah, what's he waiting for at home? What kind of
exactly? He's not even giving us, well, I was too busy with old Abrahams or whatever.
And it's perfect work for him. Disguise.
Exactly.
Yeah, or is it just easier to use the resources that are available to you? I mean, and basically what Green is obsessive, right? He's a stalker essentially. So he's asking
Madeline's a
stalker to stalk. So like capitalize on the existing skill set.
I think this is another one of those points where it's convenient for the story, but it doesn't make sense to me. I think Holmes would have gone out, put on a disguise, and gathered this information on his own. Why did he leave it up to Green to do this? A man he barely knows.
But he's obsessed. But he is obsessed with Francis, and so I mean, obsession. We'll just say people who are obsessed, who continue to obsess, can be compelled to do, just about anything.
And wouldn't you think Holmes would be suspicious that he would do something wrong because of his temper?
It just doesn't.
That is fair, but it's also I mean, we'll just say is that I think Holmes's instruction to not do anything, so then that way the case will resolve appropriately, might be enough motivation for Green to slow his roll. At least I'm hoping.
Well, he saw a coffin go in, and now he's like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" And after Holmes, Ray, as you said, he does an excellent work. Then he says, "We can do nothing legal without a warrant, and you can serve best by taking this note down to the authorities and getting one. There may be some difficulty, but I should think that the sale of the jewelry should be sufficient. Lestrade will see to all details." Get a warrant? What? Is this Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah.
And this has happened in a couple stories now in this late run of stories, that in Red Circle, in the last story it happened. Holmes has to convince Watson, and has to convince him to break the law. This is completely not like the earlier Sherlock Holmes stories in which, Holmes never would have considered getting a warrant. And Watson loved the thrill of the kind of not quite legal escapade that they were going
Oh
on.
yeah, and look at the Milverton case. Come on,
Yeah,
they
they
break into
love
his house,
that.
they witness his murder for Pete's sake, and yet and
Nobody
yet
bats an eye.
no,
Holmes and
no.
Watson don't bat an eye doing that. That Holmes is needs that he needs to save people, and he can't worry about what the law.
What I'm guessing is that in some unwritten case between then and now, Holmes got burned. That this is kind of my headcanon or my theory, so to
Okay,
speak, is that he
Uh-huh.
got
okay,
burned.
okay.
Because I have to admit, as a
Well, he got
therapist, there have
burned in
been
this
times.
case.
Well, I mean, yeah, but he got burned somehow about not having a warrant, and it came back, to disastrous results. As a therapist, there have been times where I've had to, face the situation of, we'll just say the awful situation of, do I practice across state lines to help a client who is in crisis, or do I basically follow the ethical code and not practice, and leave them on their own? I've been in situations where it's kind of you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I've had to deal with the real world consequences of the choices that I've made. And that has basically increased a significant amount of hesitancy in my choice to, we'll just say, go rushing in again.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so as a
Holmes
result of that,
never.
you can see possibly some, we'll just say, an elder or an older Sherlock Holmes and an older Watson being more hesitant to rush in.
Holmes has never had to deal with it because he's a superhero. And I
Mhm.
think I think Doyle is changing here. I think in these later stories, Doyle doesn't want to have a superhero who flaunts the law. Even though Doyle
Mhm.
himself is challenging the law in these cases that he's investigating, the Georgia Dolgy case and then later Oscar Slater, Doyle himself is challenging the law, but he can't have his superhero. Just like Holmes can't shoot up cocaine anymore. And he
Hmm.
specifically stops that and makes mention of that in a story.
Well, and when Conan Doyle writes about why he changed, he says he became aware that children were reading his
Yeah,
stories, and he
yeah,
wanted to eventually, have Holmes be a better
yeah.
role model for them.
We
And
talked
maybe
about this in
this
Devil's Foot,
falls in
like a
line
Devil's Foot.
with
Yeah,
that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I also see it with the law, and then this is not the first story now and recently that he has talked about, like, oh, we have to get a warrant, we have to wait for the warrant, and no, you don't. You're Sherlock Holmes. You're a superhero. Rush into that
Yeah.
house and you find her, and he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
And then we get the line. He says, "We'll do all we can." And he says, "We to Watson, we are as usual the irregulars, and we must take our own line of action." Now, does he mean the irregulars? The, street urchins that he has, and like we're part of that? Or no, I think he means the general term of it. And I even wonder at this point, because you mentioned it earlier, there are, the or our own, what was the line, Ray, earlier?
Yeah. No, small but very efficient organization.
I wonder if Doyle even remembers the irregulars now.
Well, yeah.
And I even like the kids, because it's in study and sign, and that's it.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And they're only called that once in the story and sign, but it's also in the chapter title. So you think
Hmm.
it would have some resonance. But that's it, people. That's the only stories those Baker Street irregulars, those kids are ever in, are those first two stories. And
Yeah.
um and I wonder if Doyle even remembers that now. But then he's used the term irregular here, so it's kind of, I don't know. But
Yeah, I
I
think
love
he's
that he
just
uses.
character. I think Holmes is just characterizing he and Watson as we are not the official police.
Yeah,
We're
no,
the
that's an
unofficial.
irregular. That's what an irregular,
Yes,
force
exactly.
is in the
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
military.
yeah.
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 But and now he tells Watson, he says, "Well, they have to murder her. They've already started to pawn the jewels. Either if they release her, she'll denounce them. So, they can't keep her under lock and key forever. So murder is their only solution." And of course, he recognizes too, had the lady that she could be dead. I don't know why she's not dead. Um, if you're going to chloroform someone and bury them alive, you wouldn't have any qualms about killing them, would you?
Yeah, yeah. No, that is another piece of this story which just keeps
Yeah.
coming back
His
again and
reasoning
again.
is like, oh, they'd have to bury her in the garden, and like, so what?
These
I'm
people
just
aren't.
thinking. Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead, Ray.
no, it falls in line with what we know of Holy Peter's character
Mhm.
to murder this woman because then they could easily take all of the jewelry and just skip town and continue to pawn it off and they've got a lot of money. It just
It's odd.
it I I don't like arguing for someone's death, but it doesn't make any sense to keep her alive. She's no value to them alive.
It's odd. It's really
It
odd
it
that
is it
this
is
is.
it is odd, although the only thing that I could possibly think of, I mean, I didn't even think of this until now, but if she's buried alive and she basically dies because of a suffocation, if we'll just say if the body is ever discovered exhumed, they're not going to be able to tell that she was murdered. Basically they're not going to be able to, like, if they just murder her outright, then it's a crime, and it's a crime worthy of being investigated. Whereas if she dies from like asphyxiation, like that type of, we'll just say like almost like carbon monoxide poisoning or something. I mean, it makes it less prone to be investigated, I guess.
Oh, wait a minute. She's in a coffin with another body. I mean, that doesn't make any,
I
that
know.
doesn't tell you that this makes really good sense.
I'm trying here. I'm trying to give Doyle the benefit.
I can't disbelieve a criminal who doesn't want to like actually
Yeah.
murder someone. Like I can't disbelieve it. Like sure that could happen. Like I've never murdered anybody, so at least they haven't found the bodies. So like I don't know. Like I can't say that, that's unbelievable for someone that like I'm just gonna put her to sleep and put her in a coffin, then I don't have to deal with it. But he doesn't ever make that case in this.
Yeah, yeah.
And he doesn't make a strong enough case where this is a more acceptable way of dealing with the problem.
Well, let me suggest we wait till the end. The final
Okay.
paragraph does
Okay.
touch on this. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Um, well, now Holmes realizes that like now finally, like, after waiting for the warrant, he realized we get the Sherlock of old. Like he's thrice is he armed who hath his quarrel just.
Henry the Sixth, Act 3, Scene 2.
Thank you. I didn't look up that I was like, where is that from? Is that the Bible or is it
Oh
Shakespeare?
no. I just do that off the top of my head. I do that all the
Is it was from what? Which one? Which play?
Henry the Sixth, Part 2, actually.
Huh.
Act 3, Scene 2.
That's all Wars of the Roses, and that makes sense. But we simply can't afford to wait for the police or to keep within the four corners of the law. Yeah, like that's you, Sherlock. I get that. So we'll take our luck together as we have occasionally done in the past. Like I almost like feel like Doyle's writing a story, he writes warrant, we gotta wait for a warrant, and like in his head he's thinking like, this is Sherlock Holmes. What the heck am I doing?
Then again, I mean, what didn't they wait for a warrant and Greek interpreters? So it's not like it's completely unprecedented, but
No, he breaks in anyway.
true. Yeah.
as and then the warrant comes up. But they go, and then he just goes to the house and pulls a gun on him, and he's like, "Where is she?" Like,
Happy.
I mean, I don't know why he just doesn't tie him to a chair and like torture him to tell him where she is.
So this is another reason why I think this is an older Sherlock Holmes, because if he's older and Holy Peters is a younger and a more physically challenging individual to him, having a gun would remove that challenge.
Yeah.
And so that at least as I'm reading this, that's what I'm thinking in my head, that he needs this to show Peters that Peters needs to play ball.
I love their boldness here. Like even his wife lets him in, like, "Well, come in," said she. "My husband is not afraid to face any man in the world." And he's not. He just says, "Oh, I guess your name does not frighten me, Mr. Holmes." He's like, she's apparently secreted in some place in this house that he knows Holmes can't find anyway. And she's unconscious likely, so he doesn't have to worry about anything. But Holmes does come like he comes off like a bit like Mike Hammerish here. Like he's just like tell me where she is. And
And then, not only does he pull a gun, but then he uses his real secret weapon, right? He says, "My companion is also a dangerous ruffian." This
that's
is the
so
same Watson that he had to save just a few days before from the sauvage out in the middle of the street.
clearly a threat that the reader knows, like, yeah, no, he's not. But like, can you imagine Watson's face at that point? Like, yeah, like I'm a dangerous ruffian. I'd love that he throws that out there. So, where is your warrant? That'll serve when till a better one comes. This will serve, but that's when he pulls out the gun. And the dangerous ruffian, and then they go to the coffin and they say, and then even deep down in the recesses of the coffin lay an emaciated figure, and they find the old woman in there, the old former servant woman in there. This is an I get he hasn't figured it out yet, but in a past story, this is the moment when Holmes would Watson will say and Holmes looked delighted and said, okay. And but he won't reveal it, but we know that he's figured it out and he hasn't figured it out yet.
This is, this is again a good argument for the older Holmes that he's slipped
Yeah.
a little bit. He's still Holmes, but just not firing in on as many pistons.
And Peters, and I think Doyle knows. I think Doyle understands what he's doing here because Peters then says, you've blundered badly for once, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. And now I realize, oh, Doyle's writing a story where Holmes blows it. And he can't blow completely. And he has blown it in some cases, 5 orange pips.
Oh yeah.
There's another one too.
Dancing Man.
Yeah, Dancing Man. Like he blows it in the past. 500 pips is the worst. He just lets the guy go home and he gets murdered. And then Holmes is like, oh, those people died in a shipwreck anyway. Don't worry about it. But here, Peters even recognizes, you're not going to catch me. And I think Doyle is also in a sense thinking that too, that Holmes is not firing on all cylinders here. He's missed the main clue right there. I've mentioned it twice in this story and Holmes hasn't seen it yet. Well, Holmes is angry. Holmes is pissed. He tells him who the old woman is, and Holmes' expression was as impassive as ever under the jeers of his antagonist, but his clenched hands betrayed his acute annoyance. And then the cops come in, and it's like, yeah, you can't be here, but they're on Holmes' side, and like, okay, we'll keep an eye on the place. We get it. You're good. They won't arrest him, and because they could. He pulled a gun on the guy. I mean, it's not burglary, but it's trespassing, maybe. I guess it's illegal.
Technically, assault with a deadly weapon.
Yeah, he threatened him, which isn't necessarily assault. And but I don't know.
Well, there's the difference between assault and battery. Battery is physical.
I don't know the exact law then too. So
that's valid. But
then I might be able to show you my gun and say show me, and they'd be like, there's nothing illegal with that. The judge might say because nothing, so you didn't shoot him. I don't know. So, but they then investigate. They find out that there was a woman, an old servant, and they go to the doctor who signs who saw her die. And then we found our way to Scotland Yard. There have been difficulties of procedure in regard to the warrant. Some delay was inevitable. First that the cops stop Sherlock is a completely unique to a Sherlock Holmes story. And that Doyle doesn't cast them as idiots. They're not they're not stupid. They're not oh, I mean, they're doing their job, and Doyle shows them doing their job. And then we get this line here that about Scotland Yard, and the procedure is to get the warrant is delayed. The futility of the law to save someone. In past stories, Holmes just blitzed through those hindrances. They don't matter. In this story, he's not a superhero. He's made mistakes in the past, but he's still a superhero. He's not a superhero in this story.
No.
He's very ordinary.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
no,
he's
exactly.
probably, that makes the case for why I think he got burned in a case that's unwritten.
Yeah.
That hesitancy, that's trauma. That's basically trauma and guilt, basically having someone pump the brakes.
Well, is there some relationship between Holmes not getting these clues and Holmes being stopped by Scotland Yard and others? I mean, if you say he's not a superhero, he's not as smart as he used to be, and he can't just go blundering into situations and kind of sorting them out anymore. It almost doesn't feel like Sherlock Holmes. It's bothersome, quite honestly.
And for Doyle's writing career now, he's just creating these like Doyle stories here, these Sherlock stories here and there, and this has been several months. And it's kind of, he's not in that. He used to complain. I mentioned this before. He used to complain about the I hated being on the grind and have to come up with a new and clever, extraordinary mystery. But when he did that, he was really on top of his game. And when now in some of these later stories, when it's just like every few months or 6 months or a year or two, he's not at the top of his game as crafting this kind of tight mystery that everything clicks.
Well, and when he was writing the original adventures, he was whether he realized it or not, he was creating a genre, and he was creating the rules of that genre.
Yeah,
that's 20 years ago.
Yeah,
and the genre has now caught up and passed him. And so, if he's reading the works of other writers, he's seeing that they're having their characters deal with more kind of real world issues, that their detectives are having to deal with real world issues that Sherlock Holmes didn't have to deal with back in the
Doyle himself has had to deal with
90s.
this and fighting for these cases,
exactly.
cases. Yeah,
exactly. So maybe he's trying to introduce that sense of a greater sense of reality into the stories. I gotta say, I don't think it works. At least doesn't work for me. But that may have been what he was trying to do.
I mean, we'll see in the future how these stories go. As I do the series, but I wish that were true, that this story was a turning point in that, and then they're not. Like later stories aren't that. Or I'm not remembering, and I'll get to them when I get to them. So, but that's an interesting point to make, Ray, and I would definitely keep an eye on that. Is this story then a kind of turning point? Like I've seen echoes of it, but this one is hard.
Oh yeah,
this is the real world that you have.
And you were writing that these stories come and go. He may just be testing these things. He may be trying them out.
Yeah. Well, Holmes hasn't figured it out yet, so what does he do? Watson says, I left him smoking hard. That's what we do. Like, I'm just going to smoke for a couple hours. I've done that. I'm just going to sit in my chair and smoke for a couple hours. I'm not reading. I'm not doing anything. I'm literally smoking because that is a good thing to do sometimes. And he turned over in his mind every possible solution, and now this is when he figures it out. And this is something we've seen in the past. I mean, man with a twisted lip, right? Like sitting on the cushions all night long and coming up with it, and that works then. And so, in a sense, he's been given the clues, and he does figure it out. But he's figured it out at a point in the story where it's like,
it could be too late.
Yeah, it should be too late.
Absolutely.
And it's not. Doyle saves her in the end, but it should be too late. Quick, what time is the funeral? quick, man, quick, it's life or death, and
Mhm.
takes off the dressing gown as Dorr Steele had in the picture, and they rush off to the house, and the coffin is coming out, and Holmes says, "Stop, the warrant is on its way. You keep the coffin here till it comes." And like the guys, like the Undertaker, they're not gonna like argue with that. Um, so they the authority in Holmes's voice had an effect upon the bearers. Peters vanishes, and that's it. Peters gone. um, and quick Watson, quick. Here's the screwdriver. Usually, it's quick Watson, the brandy. Not in this story. It's the screwdriver, which of course Watson could hand him a vodka and orange juice then, and screwdriver. I'm here all night, people. Thank you. But uh, but it's not. It's a screwdriver, and then they open up the case. They open up the coffin lid. The overpowering smell of chloroform, and then and there's cotton wool there, which has got the soaked in a narcotic, the chloroform, and there's the handsome and spiritual woman of middle age. And he raised her to a sitting position. Is she gone, Watson? Is there a spark left? Surely we are not too late. For half an hour, they have to resuscitate her. Watson says, at last, with artificial respiration, with injected ether.
Oh,
So I don't know what I tried to find out doing my expert, research ways like you did, Ray, with Turkish baths. I was looking it up online. Artificial resuscitation, 19th century, Victoria, like there were things they would do. They would raise your arms up
raise
and
your
down
arms,
and
right?
this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I'm sure they were doing all that, but they injected with ether, and which is a
Oh.
kind of stimulant, apparently, when you inject it. Um, and Holmes is like, try that. Not anymore. Um, but they get some flutter of life, quiver of the eyelids. She slowly returns to life. The poor old woman, and then meanwhile, he says the funeral may proceed, and the poor old woman who still lies in the coffin may go at last her last resting place. Like we don't find out like that's what's going on. Like it's really weird paragraph here where like what? And then we don't really get the explanation to the end of the story that she's been in the coffin with, like, they just put her on top of the old woman, and the Jeremy Brett, which I'm gonna talk about at the end, she's under her, and which
Mm-hmm.
makes more sense for the revelation, like, aha, that's why it's a deep coffin. But
Mm-hmm.
here she's just on top. I mean, and also at the end of the day, this could have been an Edgar Allan Poe story.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And I
yeah, yeah.
wonder if Doyle had that in mind. Like, I mean, we know he loves Poe and he's written about Poe and obviously Dupin and all that. I wonder if Doyle was sitting around sometime earlier this year and read Premature Burial, and he's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'll do
Yeah, yeah.
something. I'll add that detail to my story.
But Ed, we go into this odd paragraph that you're talking about. A cab pulls up, it's Lestrade with his warrant, and Holmes says, "Oh, the birds have flown." Yeah, again, the persons responsible for this crime
Yeah,
disappear. Sherlock Holmes has not brought justice by capturing these criminals. And that again, the superhero
they're
mantle has
gone.
really
Yeah, he
slipped.
may have saved her, but like where's the rest of the justice?
Exactly.
Well, they
Exactly.
saved her, and that's the most important thing. They saved her. Luckily, they
Mhm.
saved her. Um, and then they go back, and now we get the sum up at the end. They go
Yes.
back to
Yeah.
Baker Street. Should you care to add the case to your annals, my dear Watson, it can only be as an example of that temporary eclipse to which even the best balanced mind may be exposed. Such slips are common to all mortals, and the greatest is he who can recognize and repair them. To this modified credit, I may perhaps make some claim. So
Mm.
basically, it's yeah, I screwed up. I'm normal. I'm human and normal, not just human. Like I'm normal, and I couldn't figure it out until almost too late. And I'm really too late because they, you know, They get away. He says, and he tells Watts it was the coffin that's what I should have noticed earlier. It was too big, and that they uh they would bury her. I hoped you see the horror they rushed in. Oh, what does he say at one point? He says like hopefully they'll catch up to them. Oh, at the very end, the last
Yes.
sentence.
Yes.
A
Yes.
clever device, Watson. It is new to me in the annals of crime. If our ex-missionary friends escape the clutches of Lestrade, because he's super at catching people, right? I
Mm.
shall expect to
Quite.
hear of some brilliant incidents in their future career. Like,
Yeah.
I'm almost speechless at the end of this story.
Well, and you get before that, we were talking about why didn't they just kill her? And
Uh-huh.
Holmes gives this explanation. These people had never, to my knowledge, done a murder. They
Okay.
might shrink from actual violence at the last. In other words, they weren't going to kill her. They were just going to put her into the circumstances that to
Yeah.
try for her death.
Yeah.
Passive
That's
versus
what I
Okay.
active.
mentioned earlier. Like, but that doesn't
Okay.
really
No,
work.
it doesn't jive with what I mean. This is Holy Peters. He gets his ears bitten off and fights. I mean, this is a guy who really doesn't care. He's a vicious kind of guy. He's a scheming guy, and I just can't see him not murdering this woman
I agree.
at a time when it would have been more convenient for them.
I mean, I agree, but that said, though, is that we never know the measure of a person until they are in that situation. We know plenty of people, just looking at like anecdotally, people who have been trained in the military, who, when they finally get to a place where they're in a battle situation, cannot pull the
Hmm.
trigger.
Oh,
And so, people who are supposed to be basically, like able to do that still cannot. Actually, if I recall correctly, James Doohan, Scotty from Star Trek, actually very proudly never killed or claimed that he never killed a man despite his war service.
hmm.
So, there are some people that are out there that basically have that line that they'll do anything up until that point. So maybe it's just, as I said, I can see it to a degree, but it doesn't feel quite realistic with the character that was created.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's so
Yeah,
the Sherlock story as a an ordinary detective is so weird.
it's
Everybody's
deeply
ordinary in this
unsatisfying.
story. Yeah,
Hmm.
everybody's ordinary in this story, and um, it's like a clever idea. Oh, and there'll be a deep coffin in which they're gonna hide the body and have it buried, and but leading up to that, and I think it's because she's not a character, and this is when out. Well, I'll talk about the Granada Sherlock with Jeremy Brett. And usually that series, some of these stories, they have to add details. They have to flesh out a story. They did it with Red Circle that we covered last time.
Hmm.
Like they have
Hmm.
they need more of a backstory, the beginning and the end, especially. Um, but their version of this story is almost an entire rewrite
Hmm.
because the story focuses on Lady Francis,
Hmm.
and we need her as a character, a complete character, and they do that, and they really show her, and she has several scenes in it that we see her, and that heightens the whole experience and everything, and then they recognize that Holmes has failed, and then it becomes an episode about Holmes failing.
Hmm.
And in the
Hmm.
end of that, yeah, I'll spoil that people haven't watched it yet, but at the end of that, she's like in this catatonic state because of this experience. Madeline mentions in the chat that um, Dr. Bob Katz said there's no way that poor Lady Frances survived being anesthetized and
Hmm.
suffocated, that her
Hmm.
brain would have shut down. And,
Hmm.
and in a sense, that story does that she's like, she can't overcome this either
Yeah,
because of trauma or because of literal physical, the physiology of how her brain was affected by
probably
that.
both.
And it's not a happy, like it's not a triumphant, and Holmes at the end of the story is like, I completely failed. Um, yeah, you did.
Yeah. And
Well,
that's one of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ray.
no, Mon, what I was going to say was this is no better. She is alive, but we get no sense
We
of
get nothing from her.
but what about her and Green? Green disappears here, and for someone who has been so passionately
Yeah.
involved in this case all along, he just goes poof. We
Yeah.
have no idea about whether the two of them have a relationship
Yeah.
after the story is over.
Yeah.
Um,
Green just shows up and Holmes like, "Oh, good, you're here. You can take care of her." And I'm going
yeah,
home.
it's just
You get my check.
it's so dissatisfying on so many
Mm.
levels. I'm sorry, Mon, go ahead.
No. I'm agreeing with you on that one. And
Yeah.
what I was going to chime in is that I think the Granada ending, is actually a better ending than the original story, just because, again, there's that catatonia. There's
Hmm.
basically like the real world consequence of Holmes, basically like missing the mark and failing.
Yeah.
And which is probably what is feeding some of my headcanon about his hesitancy within the story itself,
Hmm.
but that and my own experiences as a therapist. But again, there's real world consequences when we make mistakes, and we have to live with that. And Holmes has to live with that.
Yeah.
And Granada doesn't let Holmes off the hook the way that the ending of this story does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
one of those stories where I'm like, watch the adaptation, people. It's really good. And it's like The Godfather, right?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
it's kind of not very great novel by Mario Puzo. It's a great movie.
Oh, totally.
That Jeremy Brett one is really great and really serves as an excellent, you know, example of the development of that character and who he is and what happens and develops other characters in the story that aren't developed. And um, I should have right off the top of my head who wrote that episode, but it's tremendously done. So yeah,
I've never sat down and taken all 60 stories and put them on a list of kind of favorites and the reasons why. But this one has got to be like in the bottom five. I just find it so dissatisfying on so many levels. There
Yeah,
are moments in it, but I just not enough.
no, and I agree with that. I mean, I'm not a fan of Mazarin Stone. I mean,
Hmm.
there's a few that are coming down the pipeline
Yeah.
that are just not great.
Yeah.
the saving grace of this is that it is so unusual, and I like it when things I expect to behave one way don't behave and
Mm.
and do something different. Now, I don't think he did something great with it, but at least I find it interesting to go through and especially see Sherlock in such a different light
Hmm.
than what I'm normally accustomed. He's not superhero Sherlock Holmes in this. He is, just a guy who sends other people to do work that he should be doing
Hmm.
and then fails. Well,
Hmm.
he doesn't fail. He nearly fails. And had he been the Sherlock of old, he'd have gotten her out of the house before they ever chloroformed her.
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
just, and would have saved her. I mean, he knew who had her and where she was, and he waited for a warrant.
He would have sent Green to the front door. Green would have gone up and pounded on that door. He would have gotten the two of them, Peters and his whatever Annie, whatever her name is, and
Yeah.
and distracted them while Holmes and Watson got into the house from the back and would have found her and
And in a
rescued her
clever
and gotten
way,
her
yeah,
heck out of
broke
there.
in some kind of
Yep.
clever
Yep. Yep.
way,
Yep.
and
Exactly.
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
Yeah.
and would have
That
figured
this
out
is
that coffin trick earlier.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
This is why as I said, I think somewhere along the way, Holmes experienced some type of it had some type of experience, some type of trauma that basically prevents him from acting like the Sherlock Holmes of old in this story.
Well,
See,
I would
for me, it's
argue
the
that
only explanation I've got.
I would argue that he's an older Holmes and his abilities are not what they used to be.
Well, it's probably a little column A, little column B, I think.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Well, Sherlockians, thank you for joining us for episode 49 of Sherlock Monthly. And thank you for watching this season. Monica and Ray, thank you for
Thank you for having
feeling,
me.
I would say for going on this biblio venture, but also dealing with this story with
Yeah.
you got to deal with them all.
It could be worse.
I'm not
You know what?
saying...
I think we've all earned a good steam at a Turkish bath. I really do.
I'm going to London in September, so
definitely need the Turkish bath.
Maybe I'll do that on my day off.
There you go. I want pictures.
Of course you do, right? And I was just gonna say, well, per previous discussion, be careful what you wish for.
There you go. Well, we will return in a few months in September 2026 with an all-new season of Sherlock Monthly, picking up where we left off with the adventure of the dying detective, which is a story I really like. And then we'll have the novel, The Valley of Fear, which we'll cover serially. I don't know how many episodes. I don't know if it'll be 2. I don't know if even more than 2. We'll see how we'll cover that. It'll definitely be more than 1. And then it'll take 2 more seasons, next season and the one following, to finish all of the stories in chronological order. But I'm so happy you're all tuning in and watching these now. Thank you to the sponsor of Sherlock Monthly, Lisa Washington, and also Belanger Books, publishing all new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, Solar Ponds, and occult detectives from the Victorian era to the 21st century. Explore the mysteries of 221B Baker Street, the horrors of Lovecraft's nightmares, and the wondrous worlds of H.G. Wells. Belanger Books has it all. Visit them today at belangerbooks.com. We couldn't do these shows without the generous support of those patrons, but also your support, which you can do through the at the Rosenbach through donation. Your support helps us create more programs like this and also care for our collections. You can become a member. Membership gives you early access and discounts on programs and courses. You can find out more at our website, rosenbach.org. Let me remind you all to subscribe to this channel, as many of you have done, to like these videos. They help us grow more audience. And thank you for watching. Monica, Ray, what a great way to end the season with you two. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you guys.
I am Edward G. Pettit of the Rosenbach Museum and Library, where the game is a book. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.